switching from low rep training to high rep training requires a completely different mindset. Watch this to figure it out.
Our next caller is Christian from Louisiana.
Christian, what's happening? How can we help you?
Hey guys, first off, I want to say thank you for all the content. I've been listening for about 3 years. You guys help me a lot, not only in the gym, but at home, now pre-sort my dishes, which is excellent.
Best thing you ever said.
The thing I'm going to go down for.
I'm the journeyman. You're the dishes sorter.
Yeah, dish guy.
So my question relates to percentage training. I started training doing kind of like bodybuilding type rep ranges. And once I switched to full body workouts, doing MAPS Anabolic, I really enjoy the strength aspect of it. But I have a lot of trouble when I go back to, when I switch my rep ranges back to rep rangers, because I'm a lot stronger and I have difficulty, dropping the weights back down. So I've seen where there's use like percentage training to calculate their rep ranges based off of like their 1 rep max. So I wanted to know what your guys' opinion is of that and like what percentages you would use for different rep ranges.
Oh, great question. First off, I'm reading your question here because you wrote it in earlier, and it says you lost about 40 pounds, and your deadlift and squat went from 225 to 450 and 405. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's incredible,
Wow,
man.
sick, man.
Yeah, great progress. Yeah. All right, here's the deal. I think basing your lifts off percentages is fine if you're training for a strength competition. But when you're working out yourself and you're doing it long term, and especially if you're going into like phase 3s of like MAPS Anabolic, percentages aren't really a good way to measure what's going on. It's all feel. It's all based off of feel. And go lighter than you think. Because what ends up happening is if you're squatting, 405 or 450, and you're doing a single or a double, and then you go into, I'm going to do 15 reps of the squat, you may think, oh, okay, I'll put 285 on the bar. And then you're gassed after one set of doing that, right? Go way lighter, go off of feel, and forget about strength. Just forget about how much weight's on the bar. The goal is to get a pump, have good form, and to feel the muscle. It's a totally different approach to strength training in those phases. Then when you get back into phase 1, then worry about the weight and how much you can lift for those low reps.
I mean, in our power lift program, we get into this, right?
It's the only program we get into.
Yeah, so this is the only program where we use that model. So, and for us, that's when it makes the most sense. Obviously, you have a very specific goal. You have a date in mind. You're trying to time the peak of your strength. I think that obviously that makes a lot of sense to train that way. But even then, I've had to have this question or answer this to people in DMs and email before. Like even there's still a gray area even for someone who's competing at that, because the truth is, if you had a bad day of sleep or you miss calorie intake, or maybe you're just really stressful day at work or the home life or something like that, like that percentage is not going to be what it says on the program or what you were told to do by some powerlifting coach. Like that's going to have to change and modify. Otherwise, you end up hurting yourself or regressing because you're just overtaxing your body and you're overstressing it. And so, no matter what, I think that you have to learn how to feel your own body, your own energy, how you anyway. So even though, and I think a lot of like people that program and a lot of real smart coaches use that model because it's kind of the most scientific approach to training. Yeah. But the truth is that, again, it's still flawed because you take somebody like the example I just gave and it kind of goes out the window. And so we find it important first to teach people that, and understanding how to work with your body and to get a feel of, how much weight should I put on the bar. And then as you getting better and better at that, if you want to take it something serious and go into powerlifting, then you can run like that program and get into that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not like numerical mechanical robots. There are those kind of fluctuations. And I guess the only accurate way to kind of, if you're just strictly by the numbers kind of a person, like if you got to incorporate like HRV or something like that to at least give you an idea of like your body's readiness. So if you factor that in, maybe it'll give you a clear look in terms of those fluctuations of, whether or not you have that kind of force output for that day. But even then still, you're basically just like paying attention to what your body's feedback is on a numerical sense versus like you could figure that out through your own intuition and just understanding how your body works.
I also want to make the point because we can read your full question, right? I can see it up on the TV right now, and I had a chance to read right before you got on, and please correct me if I'm wrong. But it sounds like part of your challenge is you love, which is, by the way, very much so like my two co-hosts over here. They love to lift heavy. They love to strength train.
It's the best.
That's their favorite way of training. And
It's my happy place.
they can be, if they're going to neglect a rep range, it's going to be the 15 to 20 rep range because they love that so much. And it sounds like you're trying to figure out how much weight you should put on the bar, and you want to put as much weight on the bar as you can, and then also train 15 reps. And if that's where your mindset is, if I was your coach and just training you, for overall health, I would say to you, like, I actually don't even. Not only do I not care about that, I would rather you flirt with it being too light, and we change our mindset going into the 15 rep range. In fact, I don't care if you accidentally put 20 pounds less on the bar that you could have done more. Slow the tempo down. Slow the tempo down and squeeze at the top and squeeze at the bottom and make the 15 reps feel like it's 20 pounds heavier versus being so addicted to putting more weight on the bar. And I think you will benefit way more from that way of training than always trying to push your limits on how much weight can I put on this bar for how many reps I'm supposed to do to this program. So I don't know if that hits home for you at all, but if that's who you're like, then, and if I was coaching Sal or Justin, I know that I would have, when we get into the 15 rep range, more often than not, I'd be telling them, hey, lighten the bar, bro, lighten it up. We don't need to do this right now.
Yeah.
Like, slow it down. And I would say, slow down the tempo. Go even slower. Squeeze the top. That's how I would coach you.
This topic gets out of emotional.
Sorry.
There's two final points I'll make on this, Christian. When you're in the low rep ranges, train with a power lifter mentality. When you're in the higher rep ranges, train with a bodybuilder mentality. Okay, so to put it differently, power lifters try to make the weight feel lighter. Bodybuilders try to make the weight feel heavier. Okay? So when you're in those higher rep ranges, don't pick a weight that's heavy. Pick a weight that's light and make it feel heavy. When you're in the low rep ranges, pick a heavy weight and maximize biomechanics and technique to make the weight feel lighter. So it's two completely different mentalities. And if you go into them with those mentalities appropriately, you're going to get the best results.
Reap the most benefits.
Now, here's the second point I want to make about percentages. Power lifters benefit more from those percentages, not because it's telling them to lift more, but because it keeps them from lifting too much. So when power lifters follow a percentage-based lifting program, they say, okay, I got to lift 75% of my 1 rep max for this particular rep range. And then they do it. And they're like, ooh, I feel like I can go heavier. Then they look at the paper and they go, no, I got to stay at 75%. That's the benefit. It's not that they're like, oh my God, I can't do 75%. That's usually not where they benefit. Powerlifters usually need to be told to go lighter, and that's where the real benefit of the percentage lifting comes from for them. It's just they're told, because they see on the paper, I can't add weight. I'm only supposed to be at 65 or 75% or whatever their programming shows. Keep that in mind.
I love the advice you just gave right there. I think it's that simple. When you get into the low rep range, think like a power lifter, and you're trying to rip and grind the most amount of weight you possibly can. When you get into the 15 rep range, you don't even care about weight anymore. It's all about technique, slowing the tempo down, the
make
squeeze.
it feel heavy.
Yeah, make the weight. Make a if you could curl, 100-pound easy curl, grab 30 pounds and make it feel like 100 pounds by slowing the tempo down and squeezing the bicep at the top and train like that when you're in those phases.
Totally. Now, I want to send you MAPS Powerlift just so you have an actual powerlifting program to follow if you so wish. Now, I will say, be careful, because I noticed in your question you said that MAPS Anabolic, you feel best. Otherwise, you tend to feel a little overtrained. MAPS Powerlift is a little bit more volume. So enter into it, and if you start to feel a little burnt out, then pull back a little bit. But I'm going to send that to you anyway, just because it sounds like you really like to lift those heavy weights, and those numbers you're putting up are pretty damn good. So
yeah, man.
Thanks. Appreciate it, guys.
You got it, man.
Wow.
Thanks for calling in.
All right. You have a good one.
You got it. Yeah, I don't think I could put it any more simply, right? When you train like a power lifter's, whatever weight you have on the bar, your goal is to make it feel light. That's the skill. When you're a bodybuilder, real bodybuilders, they look at a weight and they're like, can I make that feel as heavy as possible? And that's the difference.
That's such good advice. And so challenging for most people. We talk
Totally.
we talk on the show all the time about how people tend to identify with a camp. And so the same thing, by the way, is true for the bodybuilder who gets into the powerlifting phase,
Yeah.
right? So if I have my buddies that are my peers in the bodybuilding world and they're lifting, they're like trying to squeeze a deadlift, you know?
Yeah.
Or trying to feel the muscle.
Yeah, they're trying to get a pump from these big compound lifts. It's like, nah, bro, you need to lift
You
like
just need to rip it off the ground.
yes, yes. So it is because we all, and we're all guilty of this. We all tend to identify with
That's right.
a way of training, and when you move into that higher rep range, the idea is to not only shift the weights but also to shift the mindset. And I think that's a really good way to think about it. I like that.